Hey guys, it's Maya, and I'm coming on here for a few things. But for starters, in case you missed it, my YouTube channel went live about a week ago, and that was quite the experience. It's been an interesting and exciting week. You know, me and Jessica have been talking about this, and we've talked about launching it for over a year now. And you know, there's been a lot of factors of why it was delayed or pushed off and we weren't able to do it. But you know, I'm gonna be honest with you guys, a big factor was kind of the internal process of stepping out on my own. And I don't mean on my own like separate from Jessica, because really, you know, our partnership is super strong, and our relationship and our family and everything that we do together is in partnership. And so I really didn't launch this channel on my own, but really stepping out as far as like taking the lead as far as the ideas and the information and being responsible for, you know, what's said and what's passed along. Like, it came with a burden that I really wasn't anticipating. I mean, honestly, like, I've helped out on Roots and Refuge a lot, but the reality is that a lot of that was kind of just umbrellaed by Jessica and her extreme knowledge of gardening and different things like that. And so I never really felt like a large responsibility for the content, if that makes sense. You know, the flavor of Roots and Refuge has always been headed up by Jessica and who she is. And this was something completely different. And so I actually wasn't prepared for the process that I would go through personally to getting to launching my own YouTube channel. It was kind of surprising. Like, I'm a usually just get it done kind of person, but this really took me some time. And feeling the burden of responsibility for the content ideas and the videos, the shooting, I really wanted to make a priority of taking on all the editing. And so it's, like I said, it's just been a long process. I'm glad I went through it. I feel like I've developed, even out off the camera, going through this, you know, I really feel like I've developed and worked some things out in myself. But in the end, I decided that it was time. You know, I had talked myself into and hyped myself up that I had knowledge to offer and skills to impart and teach. And, you know, that was another one of those big hurdles. Like, you know, you turn on a camera and you start trying to talk about stuff, and some of the thoughts that run through your head are like, why am I doing this? Am I even qualified to say any of this? And what if I'm wrong? I mean, you can be your own worst enemy and hinder yourself so much in just doing something that really you're called to do and that you do have lots of knowledge about. And that's kind of where I've been. But like I said, I decided it was time. I, you know, did the personal inventory, went through the process, and decided to just go ahead and launch, and we did it. And I want to say a massive thank you to everybody who's already gone and checked out the channel, the 3 videos that I have, and just a huge overwhelming response. So thank you guys so much. So another thing I wanted to do in this video is kind of give you an itinerary of the things you're going to see coming up on Maya's workshop. So I've got a list of projects, and I kind of always have operated this way, but I'm going to start sharing that with you. And obviously we'll go into more detail over on my channel as we're going through the different stuff. All right, so in the last videos I put out, I have been working on the treehouse for the boys. Coming out of the holiday season, I actually ended up hitting pause on that. Got it to a place where it was kind of in the dry, in a place where I could stop and it not deteriorate or damage anything. And then I kind of hit pause on it. And now obviously my kids have been, you know, asking me, hey, when's the treehouse going to be ready? Because they're obviously super excited, and I've been super excited to finish it. But we had gardening season coming up, and there were still some very vital things that we needed to finish for this gardening season. And so those kind of became the priority. You know, finishing that last bed and getting this channel launched and getting that bed filled and ready to plant. The greenhouse needed some shelving. We needed to seal it up to hold some heat in for the winter, things like that. And I've still got a few more things that I need to finish for this gardening season. I'm obviously not going to be able to finish all of the things in the garden before getting back on the treehouse. Me and Jessica sat down and discussed and came up with a priority list for this season before I go back to the Shark Tank and get that finished. And those are the projects that I'm going to go over here real quick. That's like a half-day project. I've just got to run some PEX line, secure it, and give her a spigot with a hose so she can actually water inside the greenhouse without having to drag an external hose in through the front door. So that won't take me very long, but I'll get that done. It's finally time to build the base and the legs for the mosaic table that we got, you know, years ago. Now, when we got that table, and we also knew that we were going to be moving, you know, we actually shifted and pivoted from this design of the window greenhouse to the one that we actually built in Arkansas. So this was actually the original design that we were going to do, and we ended up building something different because we knew we weren't going to stay there. When we did that, we decided not to use the mosaic table in that greenhouse because of the size. We actually shrank the greenhouse down some in Arkansas, and we decided to just hold on to the mosaic table until an appropriate time that we could use it the way we envisioned and intended. That would be within this greenhouse now. So we've got the table out, I've got some measurements, and now I've got to design a base, legs, and some kind of cover for the top to keep moisture and dirt obviously out of the mosaic part of the table. So we're gonna go through that process of designing that, executing it, and getting it set up for Jessica to use. The other thing is, inside the greenhouse is that workbench table that I built on the back wall. Now, Jessica wants to be able to hang some potted plants that, well, honestly, Jessica wants to put plants everywhere, but in particular, she wants to put some plants hanging above that table to kind of utilize that space and add some cool details to the greenhouse. Unless I'm misunderstanding, it's plants that are going to stay in the greenhouse for the aesthetic of it and the way that it looks. So I kind of already have an idea of how I'm going to accomplish that. Essentially, if you've seen the plant hanger bar that is inside of our house, it's going to be something similar to that. I'm going to essentially set up some kind of bar system that will let Jessica set up either nets that hold pots or just pots that have hooks attached to them, and she'll be able to hang up plants along that back wall and really just make the greenery pop and kind of just complete the whole aesthetic of the interior of the window greenhouse. And so we'll go through that, from design all the way through execution, and I'm super excited to kind of give you guys some insight on that. I'm sure that you guys will benefit from being able to learn how the process of coming up with these black iron pipe bars are going to work. All right, so those things are what we've agreed that I'm going to do before switching back to the Treehouse project. Some things that we'll be addressing later on. I don't know exactly when. We'll just kind of see where it falls. We're going to be putting up the fence around the garden. We'll be working on some arbors and arches and gates for rose planting and entrances in and out of the garden. We've kind of got the design laid out, but we decided that it wasn't the highest priority to get those done right now. That also may be something that we decide to subcontract out. It just kind of depends on time. So one thing that has changed for us in coming here is that sometimes my time, especially with this new channel launch, I'm not going to be able to personally do every single project. Obviously we've hired my brother and other people to come out and help do stuff, and so that may be something that we ended up finding someone that can help us out with, and it may end up being that I get to do it myself. I haven't really figured that part out yet, but those are just some garden projects that you can expect probably sometime this year. Jessica has added on another long bed at the end of the raised bed garden, and I kind of assumed that she would add on another garden bed, and so I actually have all the material purchased for that. So at some point we'll go through and build one more 48-foot bed for the space that's essentially that would be the last raised bed garden bed before getting into the potato patch and down into the in-ground garden. We don't really know exactly when we're going to do that, but like I said, I have the material, and so we'll put it on the list. Just kind of sharing some of how things work here on my responsibilities is a lot of times, I'll have a general list and I've got to stay flexible, because what has a tendency to happen, especially on a farm and with a lot of moving parts and a lot of things going on, is there'll be a situation that you didn't foresee happening, like animal breaks through something or something gets broken and you've got to go fix it, or it becomes a higher priority because an animal's well-being is at risk if we don't do this. There's all kinds of scenarios where things have to be bumped to the top of the priority list. For example, I was working on the treehouse and gardening season was fast approaching, and so I had to bump the gardening projects to be able to help Jessica do her job and get our garden in. Those became higher priority, and so they moved up to the top. And so even though we set a list of what our priorities are, it still has to be flexible, because like right now I could be saying I'm going back to the treehouse, but then something could come up that actually shifts and diverts my attention, and I end up having to focus on that. And so that's also something you can expect to see, and I'm going to share on my channel, is just that process of, hey, here's the agenda for the day, but this came up, and so now we've got to pivot and we've got to shift and kind of focus on this, solve this problem, and then we'll get back to what we were working on. I think that's something that I actually do pretty well, and so I just want to give you guys some insight on how we make the day-to-day work here at Roots and Refuge. So tentatively, after I get done in the garden, we're going to get back on to the treehouse. Now, I've had to hit pause on that for a few months. But the kids have been very understanding and very accommodating. Obviously, they're very excited to get into the treehouse and be able to use it. Now, I'm excited to get back on this project and to see it through to completion. I've still got all the interior finishes. I've got to run the electrical because we've decided to kind of make this an extension of their bedroom, with 3 little boys in one room. They don't have a lot of play area. It's really kind of hindered their creativity. And what that ends up happening is a lot of their creative space ends up spilling out into the family room. Then they've got to clean it up all the time. And it's just, I wanted to give them some space that they could kind of spread out, not be on top of each other, and have a place to just play, Legos, read books, things like that. So we've actually decided also to run probably a small mini split to temperature and humidity control it, and literally just make an extension of their bedroom at the treehouse. Now, it'll still have a lot of treehouse features. We're going to get the slide done, which is kind of sitting on the ground behind me. I've never done a slide. Hopefully I've done my calculations right and it works. If not, we'll figure it out. Zip line, also not anything that I've done before, so excited to see that and hopefully, make it safe and functional. Like I said, never done it before, so looking forward to it. And then we'll also have some other stuff that we're going to finish out on it, like a climbing net. I'm going to do some kind of hidden compartments in the floor just because I think it'd be cool and it'll be something that they'll never forget. And so the treehouse is going to be a fun finish. It's going to be multiple videos because there's going to be a ton of work to do, and I'm excited to take you guys along with that. So another project that's on the list, and we'll see if it ends up needing to get bumped up higher or if it can stay somewhere after the treehouse, but it's the turkey house. So the turkey house is actually a converted dog pen I think we got from Tractor Supply that has functioned fairly well for what we needed it for, but it never really got the attention and converted into the turkey house that I hoped it would be. And it's kind of just been at the back burner because it's been functioning fine. But when we had it out in the main pasture, some of the Devons wanted to get at the turkey feed, and so they kind of pushed their body weight up against it and shifted things and kind of broke a few things. And so now it actually kind of needs some TLC, and I think it's time to do the full redesign of the turkey house. Hold on, I've got Freya licking the tripod for the camera. Are you gonna leave me alone? Go through a complete redesign of that and rebuild and bring it up to where I intended it to be, kind of from the beginning, the original idea I had. And so we'll go through that whole process. Things that I'm thinking about is a more permanent roof with some of that lightweight polycarbonate roofing material that we've used on the chickshaw and various other projects, pig housing and things like that. It's going to have an automatic solar powered door for the turkeys to be able to go in and out. And we'll do some more permanent roofs and things like that, and then also just adding some structural stuff to make it a little bit more stable. If a cow does end up pushing up against it, it won't fall apart. Some of the very first chicken houses or chicken coops that we used were actually converted dog kennels, chain link dog kennels, and we converted them into chicken coops. And so I think that, being somebody who's salvaged and repurposed stuff, I think being able to do this will be valuable for people. So another thing on the priority list, kind of around and working with the turkey house remodel, is setting up and fencing in the rest of the pastures and stuff for our Devon herd. It was not our long-term plan to keep the Devons and the Jerseys in the same area. I actually intended for this main pasture around the barn to be just for the milking herd. But when Jessica had her flare up and her skin issues, and we kind of had to slow down and shift and pivot some things, we just went into kind of almost like a survival mode and just made do with what we had. Everyone had plenty of hay and space, but it's just not the ideal system that we had intended. And so one of the things that we need to work on is using fencing materials to fence in the pasture for the Devon herd and get them moved there. I need to set up an isolation pen for Bo, so that way I can control the breeding and know when we're going to have calves and when we're not, because like right now we have calves just kind of showing up whenever, and it's not ideal for us because I would like to know, okay, when is calving season? So getting that set up, once we have that done, setting up rotational grazing on all the pastures and developing those systems. So those are kind of moving up on the priority list because we really want to steward our land properly. So simultaneously, as we're doing the cattle pasture fencing and working that system out, we're also going to be training our current hogs to electric netting. We've had hogs previously that were trained to electric netting, but none of the hogs that we started our hog journey off with are still on our farm. So none of these hogs have ever experienced electric netting. Now they do know what a hot wire is because they have used that, but we're gonna set up some electric pens inside of a hog panel pen, let them get used to it, and then we're going to start setting up larger rotational pens using just electric netting through the woods, kind of between us and where Papa T's house is. And we're going to start developing and refining our pasture-raised hog program rotation, figure out what kind of rotation and how often and spacing. And I know that there's lots of information on how you can kind of like theorize and develop that, but for me, and I don't know, I know everyone's different, but for me, I really have to do something, be hands-on with it to understand it and learn it. And so, this is going to be our first big hands-on experience with rotational grazing all of our animals. So it's kind of a big deal, and you guys are going to get to come along for that journey as we develop this system, figure out what and how we want to do it, figure out what works, what doesn't work, and then y'all can take what information you get from our experience and apply it to whatever you guys are doing on your farms. So the project I'm most excited about that's going to be upcoming at some point in the near future, I hope, is going to be my shop. It's actually why I named my channel Maya's Workshop. It kind of makes me smile a little bit when I think about the fact that I named my channel Maya's Workshop before I actually have a workshop to work in, but that's part of I think the cool journey that we're on together is that you're going to be here for the entire process. I've got some plans made. We'll kind of go over those, and then you guys are going to get to literally see the foundation, and you're going to get to be a part of me teaching myself how to timber frame and assemble, and just there's a lot of details and a lot of cool stuff that's going to be used and coming into the workshop videos. I think it's going to be one of those legacy pieces that I've talked about. It'll be around way longer than I will be, and that's kind of my intention for doing this. Timber framing has been around for a really long time. It's fascinating to me. It's a challenge because I've never done anything anywhere close to this before, and so that's exciting. Like, I love facing a challenge head on. I've got timbers. You can see them kind of stacked behind me. This is about a fifth of what we need total to build the shop. They are actively being cut, and when he gets a trailer load ready, I come and pick them up. And then, we're waiting to be able to put the foundation in. But again, you guys are going to get to see and be a part of that whole process over at Maya's Workshop. And then once we actually have the workshop, there's going to be all kinds of cool content and stuff that we'll do inside the shop. I'm going to get into some furniture building and just different fabricating and problem solving stuff actually in the shop once we have it. So there's tons of stuff to come, but I'm very excited to be on this journey with you guys. Another thing that we're going to be kind of tackling together as we go through the years to come is we're also going to be building a house. I am going to be the homeowner / general contractor for that. I've also never done that before, but again, I'm excited for the challenge. I don't have exact timelines on when all this stuff is going to happen. We're kind of just waiting for some things to happen for us to get the go-ahead, and we'll be doing that as well. Now obviously I'm not going to frame the whole house and do anywhere near as much work on the house as I am going to do on the shop, because I am going to do that pretty much by myself. The house, there are definitely things that I'm going to be doing, things that matter to Jessica and things that'll be important to her, but obviously we're going to be using some contractors to come in and do stuff. So we also don't want our house built to take 4 years. But again, we'll keep you guys posted as that stuff develops. I'm excited to get started on all the projects that I just listed. Every project to me is excitement and a challenge. And so I'm happy to take you guys along with us. So thank you for checking out the channel, Maya's Workshop. Thanks for coming along on this video, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.